the healthcare system in this
Oh
country.
yeah.
So Martin came to an analysis economically of where we were, that I think Malcolm might not have been too focused in on, but the Poor People's Campaign,
Inviting you
as
guys
someone
to a
here
live
said,
stream
they
with
were part
Umoja
of the
Unity
first Poor People's
Talks.
Campaign
We're
in
talking about Black
1968.
liberation,
And
the
so,
Black liberation
who is
movement.
that person who said that they were part of the first 1968 Poor People's Campaign?
Deb Livingston.
Livingston. Where is Deb Livingston? Can she turn on her camera?
The camera's on. She's waving at you, Teresa.
Well, I got this funny view I got set up here.
I'm here.
Where are you, Deb?
I'm here.
Okay,
Can you
tell
hear
us
me?
about the 1968 thing.
Well, I was 17 years old, and I had been marching for peace in Vietnam, and had been involved with Quakers since I was a child. So at the first March on Washington, I was only 13, and my parents weren't letting me go down there, but I longed to go. But by the time I was 17, I was doing things on my own, and I took the train to Washington and helped build Resurrection City, and I would go back and forth because I was still in high school, but I was able to go after school got out and be there every weekend. And at the time, it was just such an incredible feeling to be with so many cultures and so many people came from the West, and Native Americans were there, and it was an incredible place, an incredible feeling to be part of that. And at the time, when they came in with the tear gas and burned it all down, that's when just the feeling of jail without bail will clog the courts, and it was. I didn't tell them I was 17 when I got arrested, so I was able to go with all the women into the jail, and singing and being part of a movement like that was just simply incredible.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how we've come full circle in this current Poor People's Campaign, which the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom is highly invested in. And so those of us who are members of WILF here can feel good about the new Poor People's Campaign, led by Reverend Barber and others who are pushing it forward. Now, Stephen Smith, I'm trying to remember what you look like. So can you turn on your camera? Are you in a state where you can turn on your camera?
I'll try.
So I heard that you had retired Stephen Smith from Lincoln.
Yes, I have. I apologize for screwing up. I was so eager to log on that I forgot to mute my mic. But I want to mention, Lucille Times died recently. People know who she is?
No, tell us.
Well, the obituary in the New York Times read, Lucille Times, who inspired the Montgomery bus boycott, dies at 100. She was charged with...
Wow.
I'll just read the obituary. Lucille Times, who inspired the Montgomery bus boycott, dies at 100. 6 months before Rosa Parks accused of her seat, Mrs. Times had an altercation with a bus driver and stopped riding the city segregated buses. So it's in the New York Times. You just do a search for her name, Lucille Times, obituary, New York Times.
Spell her last name.
Times.
Well, thank you. This has been a real history lesson. I know that Brother Khalid had a point he wanted to finish. If no one else wants to speak now, we can let Brother Khalid finish his point. Do you remember what your point was, Brother Khalid?
Yes, very simply, I was going to highlight the role of Joanne Robinson
and others in organizing the Montgomery bus boycott. And I know you kind of told me to shut up, like I'm gonna accept that for the time being. We'll talk about that later. I get it. You wanted to uplift women. I understand that. But here's the thing. Just as we need women within the movement, we need men too. And one of the things about black men, especially in the last few decades, black men have been marginalized to almost dirt, right? In our families, in our neighborhoods, in our communities as well. And even more recently, within the liberation movement itself. Right? As we uplift women, that doesn't mean we have to marginalize men, right? As we uplift the women of color as well, that don't mean we have to marginalize the men of color. We have to learn how to fight. You talk about fighting patriarchy, and we have to learn how to fight in a very principled fashion. We shouldn't allow the domination of men, but we shouldn't be okay with the subjugation of men either, especially within the movement, and especially black men. And I have to be very open and honest. I personally witnessed that tendency over the last few years, not decades, but just over the last 5 years or so, last 5 to 6 years. I've been in rooms, I've been invited to meetings where there have been critical issues on the table, and the black men in the room have been told to shut up.
I
Right?
agree.
But even though
That's
the
a
people
problem.
are talking about issues that are very specific to black boys and black men, like brothers getting murdered by the police. But when brothers show up to these community meetings and they want to give a viewpoint and offer some ideas about tactic and strategy, we're told to shut up, that we don't have nothing to say. But meanwhile, the people want to lead the marches and demonstrations of black women, but they're telling the black men not to have a voice. It doesn't make sense in my world. Right? So when we talk about patriarchy, we have to fight patriarchy in a very principled and balanced way, especially dealing with men of color and especially dealing with black men. There's no other group in this country who get beat down and shot and murdered and over incarcerated more than black boys and black men in this country. That's the reality. It may not fit people's politics, but that's the social reality. We talk about mass incarceration. The vast majority of people who are the victims of mass incarceration directly are black boys and black men. There's a growing number of black girls and black women, but the predominant group is black men. The largest number of political prisoners in this country right now, especially within the black community, are black men. Some have been in jail for decades and decades. Teresa, you know some of these people just as well as I do. That is a political reality.
Yes.
Okay, governments target certain people specifically because they see certain people specifically as a potential threat. Right. And it does have a lot to do with gender as well as race. Right. So let's be honest about that. So let's uplift black girls and uplift black women, right? But let's not suppress and marginalize black boys and black men as well. Everybody is needed in order for this revolution to be successful.
Yes.
Thank you, Brother Khaled.
Well
I will
said.
speak to that in a minute, but
Well
George
said.
has her hand up. George, what did you have to say?
Well, I basically agree with Brother Khaled, but there are a couple of fine points I want to make sure I'm naming. We do need everyone to participate for us to win. But we also need to deal with the toxicity of patriarchy. Patriarchy within black men, because you're born male in this culture in the US. There's so much patriarchy, sexism, heterosexism that is just there. And if all men, black men, white men, all men, deal with that systemic heterosexism and patriarchy, then we can talk about how do we fight with principle? How do we hear each other? No one needs to feel shut up. No one needs to feel oppressed or suppressed when we're working together. But for most of my lifetime, and I'm just hitting 61 on my birthday, most of my lifetime I've been told, black men get their ass kicked so hard, they don't have any room. You give them some of yours. No. I heard it from my family, my brothers, my peers who are black men. And it took a lot for me to realize I'm taking up my own room. And sometimes that's manifested by my having an extra large body because I want my space. And I'm not giving it up for anyone else. That does not mean, my needing my space does not mean my intention is to take away an inch of yours. But we do have to step outside of the toxicity of patriarchy and white supremacy so we can be real and build power. Sorry for being overly passionate. I get loud sometimes.
No, George, it's totally appropriate because this conversation, Brother Khalid, that we're doing for 4 months, it is about burning patriarchy down to the ground. And the reason why we wanted to have this conversation, I saw a little clip of a classroom where some students, 6 years old, were asked to make presentations. And I could not believe my eyes. A little girl, 6 years old, had a real analysis of how boys and girls were looked at differently in society. And she said, we're gonna burn patriarchy down to the ground. So this is her words from a 6-year-old. And what I started out talking about, Brother Khalid, was that period from 1998 to 2018, where it was very hopeful that 2 Black organizations were going to build something new. The Black Radical Congress. I would say it was the seeking of hegemony and male egos that killed the Black Radical Congress. That's my analysis of it. At the same moment that the Black Radical Congress was having its 10th anniversary, I was at another meeting in Chapel Hill where the new organization, the Black Left Unity Network, of which you were elevated to the steering committee of that in 2018. So the Black Radical Congress died of infighting between men, not women, men. And then the Black Left Unity Network died when the issue of patriarchy was raised. And basically, it dissolved, and we haven't heard a peep from it since 2018. So my analysis is an organizational analysis because I'm saying that people can't do no more to you than you let them. And what we have had in the Black liberation movement is unfortunately a level of patriarchy, which Shaki Benter put out a clear analysis about. And the Revolutionary Women's Working Group of the Black Left Unity Network came up with a clear analysis about that in 2015. And we were attacked unbelievable, which led to the end of the Black Left Unity Network. That was the beginning of the end. So there is a reality to patriarchy and male domination within the Black liberation movement that I have lived. And so I say that it's time to stop the foolishness. Women have to be half of what's going on. We're not saying we need to run everything. When the Black Left Unity Network put the steering committee together, Black women had met as a group, and we said, we gotta have at least half of the steering committee is women. When the brothers came up with the steering committee, it was like 16 folks. 6 of them were women and 10 of them were men. When I raised the issue and said we need to revisit this, haven't heard a peep about what happened to it. You were on that steering committee, dear Brother Khalid. Did you ever hear anything about what happened after May 2018? See, for me, it's all about talking about the reality and the objective situation, not about what we feel about how badly Black men are treated versus Black women. But I'm talking about organizationally, the errors that we made and how we can correct them. Do you remember? You weren't at the meeting on 2018, but somehow you managed to get on the steering committee, even being absent. it was like half the men who got appointed to the steering committee were absent, and women who were at the meeting were looked over. Now, these are realities that I have dealt with, Brother Khalid.
Okay, well, you asked me a question about that, so I'm going to respond very quickly. First of all, I didn't select myself to the steering committee. I guess I was nominated to be part of a steering committee. Not only didn't I select myself, I didn't nominate myself either. And I do remember yourself and some other sisters and some brothers raised the issue, and I may have been one of those brothers about more equity and balance in terms of representation on the steering committee. I haven't heard anything or too much about the Black Left Unity Network, so I really can't speak to what happened afterwards. I know there was a lot of discussion, but again, I was nominated to be part of the steering committee. I did not make any decisions about any direction for the Black Left Unity Network. That was kind of the beginning and the end for me. I had been a part of it, but only as a member. I was not in any decision-making capacity, but I did make a recommendation that we have a more balanced steering committee. I supported that, and I never heard too much of anything else after that, and so that's the end of it. So that's my response to that. Again, I do agree. We have to support each other. We have to deal with patriarchy, but dealing with patriarchy doesn't mean we have to promote matriarchy either. What it does mean is that we got to promote balance. Okay, and no, seriously, I can't speak for your experiences in your circles, but I can certainly speak to the ones that I've been in personally. Okay, and so it is not about like marginalizing and beating down men, especially Black men, when we're dealing with these community issues. I was in a situation just a few years ago where there was a community meeting that was held about a very critical issue, right, involving some racists and white supremacists being in the area. And so some people had decided to organize some type of response, or at least some type of defense, right? And because the women who were facilitating the meeting talked so bad about the Black men, the ones who showed up to the meeting, when people got together to talk about some type of defense response, the brothers declined, right? They didn't want to be involved. And certain ones of us had to push them and push them and push them. They didn't want to be part of that. So, we got to understand words, language is powerful. And we got to be careful how we communicate, even amongst ourselves as brothers and sisters and comrades, and not just take things for granted. Doesn't mean we practice liberalism, but it does mean we have to be more conscientious and mindful of even how we deliver principled criticism towards one another. So I agree, do we need to work on dismantling patriarchy? Yes, we do. But we don't need to replace patriarchy with matriarchy either, especially if it's going to be at the psychological expense of men. I do not support that.
Well, one of the things that women have traditionally done is organize our own organizations so that we can avoid the patriarchy. And so the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom is such an organization. And we have engaged a struggle inside of that organization, Brother Khalid, where we have established a Black Liberation Caucus to deal with, as Margot said, the white supremacy inside of that 106-year-old organization. So Black women are at the forefront of the transformation of society. We are strategic and we are clear about it. What I have struggled with in my 55 years is how Black women have been treated inside of our liberation movement, which is why there are several different things going on right now that are about building unity in the national Black liberation movement. So we aren't claiming to be one of those initiatives, but we certainly are doing what we can as an organization that is inclusive. We're not an all Black organization. The Southern Anti-Racism Network is not an all-Black organization. And many organizations in the Black liberation movement are all Black organizations. But what I've been trying to understand in meeting with some of the organizations who do understand the significance for allies. So this is a deeper organizational question that I hope we can discuss. And I'll just be very specific. The African People's Socialist Party. They came into the Black Left Unity Network meeting in May of 2018 and disrupted the meeting, challenging Saladin Muhammad in particular. This is kind of family talk, but I just want us to get back, Brother Khalid, to this whole concept of unity. The Umoja unity talks will end in December of this year with a big Kwanzaa celebration. But I had asked you to participate in the debate today. And I'm glad you showed up because I will keep my commitment and just out of the spirit of transparency through these Umoja unity talks. It's been all Black speakers. And we have provided honoraria to the Black speakers of $200 each. And I had asked Brother Khalid to be in this session so that I could provide him with an honorarium. And I'm glad he showed up because we're gonna talk and he's gonna give me the address. And so he will get his honorarium for being here and making the major contribution he's making. Because what we did in the previous talks, we had male, female for each of the talks starting in February. All of them were former political prisoners. We said that July would end the former political prisoners talks, and we would start in August doing the Burn Patriarchy Down to the Ground talks. And I had asked Brother Khalid, because I've always struggled with him about what I felt was a tendency towards rah, the men and down with the matriarchy, as he says. And he did come because he ain't scared, not one bit. So I'm going to keep my promise, Brother Khalid, so we can keep participating. And I would like to announce to people, I've been in 2 major Zooms, political discussions, where there were only less than 15 people in the discussion. We had set a goal here of 20 people in this discussion, and we're at 25. So I'm very glad to see that. And so, George, you have to help me out, because as people are talking in the chat and raising their hands, feel free to call. I love what Jessica Gonzalez said. Many of our original cultures were matriarchies, thriving, healthy societies.
Mhm.
Don't you know that's true? Don't you know that's true?
And D. Murphy gave her an amen in terms of, say, right, Jessica. I may have seen this wrong, but Jennifer Disney, I think, had her hand up, unless I'm seeing something.
I see D. Murphy with her hand up, not mine.
Oh, that's right. All right, D.
Hi, everyone. So, the issue of matriarchy and patriarchy in the Black community. This is not just within the Black liberation movement. It's in all strata of our society, and one that really needs more thorough discussion. I know that I'm dealing with it in the organization I'm with right now, and it's ugly. And I think that there are some people who happen to be born male that feel that automatic respect, and I should be bowing down and backing down to everything they say, whether it makes sense or not, because they're a male, and that's not true. I think that, like Brother Khalid said, we should respect each other and listen to one another, but there's no need for anyone to be submissive to the other side. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing though is a lot more experience with people feeling, with black males feeling like I should have to be subservient or in some way deferent to them. And that's not going to happen. I was raised by my father, who was a black male, and he has always taught me to think for myself, stand on my own 2 feet, and never let anyone push me around, just because of gender or race or anything. And I will always be strong. I will always have my own intelligence and my own thoughts. And I will never defer to anyone because they have a penis. That's all I have to say. Over. Thank you.
Well, that was graphic enough. Well, thank you, Sister D.
For real.
What we want to do is we're right at 1 hour and 44 minutes. Is that accurate, George? And these sessions are set up. It's amazing how the time flies when you're having fun, wouldn't you say? And so these sessions are set up for 2 hours. And so, Sister D, I'd like to talk with you because what we have been doing is we've been setting up these discussions so that we would have two speakers of African descent. And we don't have any speakers lined up for the rest of this series. And so normally it's a brother and a sister for these sessions. In July, unfortunately, we were using, it was the last meeting of political prisoners. And the 2 political prisoners didn't show up for the session. And they were 2 men, because we had run through all of the women political prisoners. But now the conversation has shifted, Brother Khalid, to burn patriarchy down to the ground. And I do know that there are some women in Philly that are in Pittsburgh, I should say. So I'm gonna reach out to Sister Claire, because she's in the New African Independence Party, isn't Sister Claire?
She's a supporter, but she's actually a member of the Green Party of Allegheny County.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's right. So George, did any of those Green Party women show up today?
D. Murphy is a Green Party member.
Oh, are you D?
Yes, myself and Jessica, yes.
So
Members
what
of the
city?
NBC National Black Caucus.
Oh yeah, what city?
I live in Minnesota. St.
Oh.
Cloud.
In St. Paul?
St. Cloud.
St. Cloud.
Central Minnesota, yeah.
Oh.
I'm in Minnesota too, and I do work for the Green Party as well.
And then
Oh,
Jessica, and I don't know about Brian.
So there's Deanna and Jessica, who are with the Green Party, both in Minnesota.
No, Michelle with Bob Rewards Club. I'm in Minneapolis.
You're in Minneapolis,
Yes.
Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
So can I make a quick comment in response to I can't remember the sister's name who just spoke a moment ago in
D.
her closing comment? Yes.
Murphy.
See, here's the thing. In a lot of spaces that I've been in, I've been told, and this is a quote, listen, just listen to black women. Right? Just listen to black women. Don't argue with black women. Don't debate black women. I'm talking about in spaces where we're doing organizing and we're talking about movement building. So black men have been told unconditionally not to have too much to say. And if we raise an issue, if we offer any criticism, if we offer any type of direction, we're labeled as practicing patriarchy. If we raise our voices too loud, we're practicing patriarchy. If we argue with women, now we're just a bunch of misogynists because we have a different perspective or because we differ with them strategically or tactically. I know you're laughing, Teresa, but this is the kind of stuff that some of us have been confronted with over the last few years or so, right? And we've been told unconditionally, just like the sister said, I'm not going to take authority just from someone because they have a penis. Okay, well, we've been told we need to accept authority and direction from someone just because they got a vagina. How ridiculous is that? When you say just listen to black women unconditionally, doesn't matter whether their suggestion is ass backwards. Doesn't matter whether they're suggesting in terms of strategic, strategy or tactic. Just don't make sense. We should just bow down and listen to them and follow them because they are black women. That doesn't make sense. What kind of revolutionary movement is that? So when we talk about dismantling patriarchy, again, we got to be very careful that we don't swing the pendulum all the way back to the opposite end, where it just causes a whole bunch of havoc and confusion amongst oppressed people. And that is what is some of the stuff that's happening within the black community that has been developing over the last several years. And I don't need the $200. You don't need to make it out to me. You can make it out to the party. That'll work for me, right? But I just want to make that point and make that point perfectly clear. We need balance. And
I'm with you
sometimes
on that. I'm completely with you on
sometimes-
that. And I'll tell you, when a man raises his
and
voice, I can
sometimes-
raise my voice too.
that's
You know
fine.
what I'm saying?
That's
It's not a
fine.
thing
And no one's
it's
going to
only
accuse you.
particular to men, so I completely understand what you're saying.
Okay,
Okay, but
one,
listen, sister.
okay, stop,
Okay,
stop.
sister. If you
Stop,
raise your voice
stop.
to people accuse you
Stop,
of hitting
brother
men.
Khalid,
look.
stop. See, that's why
Yes.
people tell you to shut up, brother Khalid.
No, I was speaking and she cut
That's
in.
why
You didn't
people
tell her to
tell
shut
you
up. You see what I'm saying? When I was speaking and the sister cut in, you didn't tell her to shut up.
Yeah,
You let her
since you did, you didn't hear her because you were talking.
No,
You
no.
did tell her to be quiet.
No, she didn't tell her to shut up.
I know you didn't
I
hear
heard
her
it.
say.
No. I can hear perfectly clear. She didn't tell her to shut up.
Don't make
No,
up.
I
See, now let's
apologize
speak.
if we've been
It's
disrespectful.
fine. No, it's fine. I
I'd
mean, I
love to
can deal
discuss
with it.
with the men
No.
further
I
on an
can deal
outside
with it.
venue.
But again, if you're going to talk
Brother
about
Khalid,
balance and
stop.
struggle, let it be
Stop, brother
balanced.
Khalid, stop. Because what I said was one microphone at a time. I was definitely telling Sister D to stop. And so that is the thing, brother Khalid. You got to be able to know when you are showing what some of us perceive to be a kind of man-splaining thing. So sometimes when men are told to shut up in meetings, it's because they're doing their man-splaining.
Got to love
thing.
this.
And so for those of us, and you're grossly outnumbered in this session. So in terms of women outnumbering men. But let me just say this, because it comes up a lot and people can't picture the scene when it happens. But I know the scenes where women have told men to stand down. I've been in many sessions where I've had to say stand down to some brothers. Because when you start your man-splaining thing, it's just a bit of a problem. See, D jumped in, which is the kind of reaction that women tend to have when they think the mansplaining thing has gone on for too long. Now, you're saying you've been noticing this in the last few years in meetings. There is a higher level of consciousness among women, and I would say particularly younger women. And so we're noticing, I could say coming up in my generation, I used to sit there while the men talked, Stokely Carmichael talked, Julian Bond talked. We took notes and we just listened. I remember those days. So I know when Stokely, he really did say it, the only position for women in the movement is prone. He definitely said that. So I know what it was like 50 years ago when it came to women in the Black liberation movement and what went on then. And it's kind of like now women are saying no more, never again. So now that's what's going on now. So you got to be a little bit in a historical context thinking. Those of us who did things or didn't do things back when we should have been speaking up. Now we have found our voices in new and different ways. And it's not to take anything away from men. We understand that the system has been attacking Black men as the main target. They've done other ways of using Black women. And I understand why the incarceration rates are where they are, etc. But we've got to understand that women are going to be leaders in the movement from this point forward. And hey, we may be out front because I work with women in public housing, and their husbands are either in prison or can't get a job because they've been in prison, so they can't pay child support. And so I have to struggle with those women and them saying their fathers of their children can't see the children because they can't pay child support, they can't take care of them, they live them in poverty. So we got lots of struggles in the Black community as it relates to men and women and what the system has done to us. So I explained to those women in public housing, it's the system that's keeping the father of your children from getting a job because the system is legally discriminating against the father of your children because he went to prison. So you got a felony, you can't live in public housing, you can't get a job. They're legally discriminated against. So let's attack the system, not the father of the children. Let's bring the fathers into their lives. That is the struggle that I wage every day with Black women who are living in such deep poverty. They lose their minds. And I have to bring them back to the fact that it's the system that's keeping the father of your children from being able to pay child support because they can't get a job. So this is how we work together, Brother Khalid. We have to help everybody understand the system. And the main target is the system that we're attacking. So Black women are out there now learning how to attack the system to the benefit of all of us. So I just want you to know that that's the real work that many of us are doing. Deidre Whittlesey, who was here in Columbus with me, that's the work we do every day. She actually works for DFACS, so she sees those women and children living in poverty. 70% of the people living in poverty in the world are women and children. That's no accident. That's because of the system of patriarchy. And so those are the kind of political analyses that we need to see coming from Black men. Like, I understand your pain, sister. We know what the system is doing, so let's work together to burn the system of patriarchy down to the ground. Not burn Black men down to the ground, but burn the system of patriarchy down to the ground. Because
we're at 10 minutes. And Jennifer Disney's had her hand up for 15 of those 10 minutes, easy.
So you decided to rudely interrupt me.
I was waiting until you took a breath.
Well, George, you have to turn on your camera and wave at me. I hate it when you do that, rudely interrupting me with your voice thing, just to be frank. So Jennifer, what's your point, sister?
I just wanted to say I appreciate that the pendulum of history metaphor was raised, because that's exactly what I was thinking at the time, that we are dealing with so many years of interlocking oppressions due to interlocking systems of oppression, from patriarchy to capitalism to racism to imperialism. And so some groups have been on top or have been more centered, and other groups have been on the bottom or been more marginalized. And we need to create space for all these different intersectional voices to be able to be heard. And I think everybody on this call, I think we are all committed to fighting oppression as such, not just oppression based on race, or oppression based on sex, or oppression based on gender, or oppression based on sexuality, or oppression based on nation or ethnicity or country of origin. I think we are here because we want to fight oppression as such. We want to fight relations of domination and subordination in whatever form they take, based on whatever relationship. And so to me, that's what brings us together. And sometimes the pendulum does have to swing to center people who have previously been marginalized to put to use Bell Hooks' metaphor, to take people who have been in the center, put them in the margins, take people who have been in the margins, put them in the center. That doesn't mean you listen all the time or you speak all the time. It means we take turns listening and speaking because we have a complex understanding of these intersectional oppressions that we all live and walk and breathe and die within and between every day. So I just want to thank the Umoja Yearly Talk for happening, and SAR, and for bringing together the ability for us to speak frankly about these interlocking systems of oppression, and encourage us all not to lose sight, not to get bogged down within any one identity or any one system of oppression at any one moment, but recognize they work to reinforce one another. And we have to fight them together because we live them. They oppress us together every day, right? So we have to find ways to fight back at those intersections together as well. And sometimes that does mean centering voices that have previously been marginalized.
Well, thank you. But just so that people know, the Southern Anti-Racism Network is an organization that was founded on dismantling 4 systems of oppression, and they came out of the influence of the Black Radical Congress. So we believe we're not your normal nonprofit. We believe that in order for us to be free, we have to end capitalism, imperialism, patriarchy, and white supremacy. And we came to that conclusion when Black women gathered in Chicago a few months after the founding of the Black Radical Congress. And a woman asked the question, what would it take for us to be free as Black women? And after some debate and discussion, we came to the conclusion we had to end capitalism, imperialism, patriarchy, and white supremacy for us as Black women to be free. And by the way, when we're free, everybody else will be free too. So that's what the Southern Anti-Racism Network was founded on. So I'm glad that you raised the intersectionality of our oppression. Dr. Jennifer Disney, thank you so much for that. And so we need to have last words from people. Part of these discussions is that lots of people see themselves as coming to learn and to be quiet. But I would like to hear from somebody who hasn't spoken yet. And I would like for Barbara Nielsen of San Francisco, one of the leaders in the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. She came in a short time ago, so could you quickly introduce yourself, Barbara Nielsen?
Barbara Nielsen, who cannot tell time. I apologize for being late. I felt embraced by this conversation even when it was painful for people and me to listen, and cannot tell you how important it feels to have the conversation happen and everybody still be on the call as we work through it. And it's been really good to see faces I know and to see faces I don't know and want to know, and who all made me feel welcome.
Anyone else who would like to speak who hasn't spoken? Now is the time.
I would like to introduce myself to you all. I am Michelle Gibson Webb. I'm with Bob Rewards Club. Bob is the next generation. We are a organization. In fact, we are a 501c3, and we specialize with business development solutions for Black-owned businesses. We are actually do a lot of work underground, and we've been around since 2016, and now we're starting to see a lot of noticeability with the Black-owned businesses nationwide. So we're happy about that. Now we also kind of run piggyback with Black Lives Matter. In fact, the co-chair of the Green Party in Minnesota is also the head of Minnesota Black Lives Matter. His name is Trayon Cruz. If you had watched the trial for Derek Chauvin afterwards, he was one of the speakers. And so we're very much involved with that. The Green Party, you were talking about it, is getting a lot of publicity for having a lot of your Black grassroots candidates. Okay. And so that's, because they are at the top, like you do see a little bit of the Democratic Party, but, they're a real liberal group too. So it just depends on, what you look, what you're interested in as far as your ideologies. But it has been an up and coming political party for Blacks right now. So there's a hot movement with the Green Party. So anyway, I just wanted to introduce, and please go take a look. We are streaming this from our 3 channels too, because we do marketing as well. So there is a video being created as well. So we, wanted to give a shout out to this platform and conversation. And I hope to learn more about all of you all as well. And to learn more about us, you can go to bobrewards.club. Have a good day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sister Michelle.
Mhm.
Who is Chago Wilson? I don't recall seeing you in the Umoja Unity Talks before. So could you introduce yourself?
Good evening, Sister. That's the second time you said that in one of these meetings. So this is about my 4th meeting, and because I go back to when you had the sister, the Move sisters, the sisters from the Move movement, and I've been on every conference, every call since then. And you and I are co-members of Us Lifting Us.
Oh, wonderful.
Right.
Wonderful. I was wondering what happened to Brother Hakima and Sister Tamu, because they both registered, but they're not here.
Right. Well, Sister Tamu is busy with a book she just wrote that just became available in July. So she's doing book signings regularly now. So she's probably busy somewhere doing a book signing today.
Yeah, because I purchased a book and it came in the mail about a week ago. So we're going to bring her here to Columbus for a book signing.
Okay, because I edited that book for her.
Wonderful. Well, forgive me, I won't forget again.
Okay.
Brother Henry, who are you, Brother Henry? Introduce yourself. Brother Henry, unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Don't be shy. One of the things about doing the Zoom meetings is trying to know who people are. Sometimes people are lurking. We used to have a thing back in the day because we were so infiltrated through COINTELPRO and the police to this very day in Philadelphia. They have to identify themselves. When we say, "Are you with the police?" they have to identify themselves if they are. And so they have that little red squad. And I remember at a meeting, a Malia meeting a few years ago, it was a bunch of cops in the meeting, and somebody from WBAI or something, they were running out of juice with their phone. And so they asked for those of us to use their phones. And one of the cops gave the reporter her phone. And she said, "No, I don't want this phone." And she looked at my phone and she said, "I'll take your phone." And that's how we know that, they still come to our meetings. So, Brother Henry, don't make me talk about you. Identify yourself, Brother Henry. I have no idea who you are. Maybe he left the room or something. But the next gathering of the Umoja Unity Talks. The next session is it's always the last Saturday of the month. So September 25th is the next session, and we'll continue this conversation about patriarchy. And I like that we're bringing it into a kind of intersectionality, which Jennifer Disney, I'll read what you wrote in the chat, Jennifer.
I just said that intersectionality encourages us to feel solidarity for other oppressed groups, other people whose oppression we might not share. Because I think I agree that not all oppressions are created equal, but it would be tough to sit here and say we're going to create a hierarchy of oppression and which one has primacy, at least among the top four. If you're talking about racism, capitalism, imperialism, and patriarchy, I think we would be hard pressed to even separate those, much less rank order them, because they are so entangled in the history of oppression of people of color globally. So to me, intersectionality liberates me because it allows me to put my feet in someone else's shoes. If it's one of those four that I've not personally experienced, I mean, what a horrible world it would be if we could only fight for something that we experienced, right? We need to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes so that we can fight against systems of oppression, even if we are not under that boot, but we're under a sister boot, a sister oppression, because at least, again, I'll call them the top four, the four that Teresa reminded us are what SARN is focused on. It will be hard to disentangle their intricate web through which they have oppressed women of color globally.
Well,
I'd like to qualify.
Well, hold on. Jennifer, it's a case of you're white. And so the thing that Brother Khalid, and I'll give him a chance to speak, colonialism is a kind of overarching thing that we struggle against. That's why when the Black women met in Chicago, we were very clear that us being Black women meant that we had to dismantle all those systems of oppression. If you're white, white supremacy is not a system that hurts you. So that's the clear thing that the Southern Anti-Racism Network is clear about, which is why we were bold enough to call ourselves the Southern Anti-Racism Network, because we've been focused on burning white supremacy down to the ground, for sure. And that's why we try to connect with white allies in the movement, because if you're really with us in the spirit of John Brown, you're going to help burn white supremacy down to the ground. You're not going to sit in the room when those folks are talking all kinds of nasty stuff about Black teachers and other Black people. You're going to speak up and say, wait a minute, I don't agree with that. I'm not that. So that's what we expect from white people, just to be real clear about what the Southern Anti-Racism Network is about and why we invite people of European descent into these discussions that could be considered family meetings. It's on you, Brother Khalid. You got the last word.
I don't need to have the last word. I may be accused of being a misogynist. I just want to be able to read my comments and to qualify my comments. What I wrote is basically also intersectionality, and I want to emphasize this, is not the same as solidarity. Intersectionality may make you feel good, right? But that doesn't mean you're going to really help in a movement to free something or some people or yourself. It's a feel-good thing. People always talk about intersectionality.
True.
It gives a lot of liberals, it gives them a feel-good thing and they get off the hook. They say, I believe in intersectionality. Okay, if you believe in intersectionality so much, then why don't you challenge your neighbors and your people that you live with, the people that you live around their racist attitudes and their racist white supremacist behavior? Do that, because that's real solidarity, not just intersectionality. Again, all oppressions do not have the same historical weight and or significance throughout, I should have said, throughout the history and development of the liberation movement and struggle. At certain points, certain types of oppression get more emphasis than others, even amongst colonized people. Certain types of oppression, it might be the oppression that women suffer, it might be the oppression that youth suffer, it might be the oppression that the men suffer, it might be the oppression that the elders and seniors suffer, right? But everything is not an equal weight throughout the history and throughout the development of a liberation movement, right? But here within the United States, we got caught up into this real Democratic Party-led liberal progressive type of thinking that we put everything on the same playing field, right? And everything ain't on the same playing field, right? Black people need to be free in this country along with other people. And that means, since we talked about Malcolm, we talked about Dr. King, as Malcolm said it 50, 60 years ago, by any means necessary. By any means necessary. And so if you believe in intersectionality, okay, are you willing to support Black people's right to armed struggle? Are you willing to support Black people if we decide that we want to have maybe a semi type of republic to ourselves, right? Tell me about that type of intersectionality. That's more than just a feel good, progressive, quasi liberal type of thing that's really rooted in the material justice and liberation and benefit for any oppressed people. That's my closing comment. Call me what you like, but hey.
Well, as I said in the chat, Brother Khalid's opinion is his opinion. And I think what we will do next time is have a discussion about what is intersectionality and what is meant by it. Because I think the characterization that Brother Khalid has given to it is not how I see it. And so we can have that conversation at length. But let's settle in on this question because we're going to go out with Fannie Lou Hamer because there's a lot of information that went in the chat. And so we want to give people a chance to save the chat. And we do that by allowing music to play while we're saving the chat. But are we okay with coming back together on September 25th, which is the last Saturday in September? So we'll continue to invite more people to the conversation. But the series is, make no mistake, burn patriarchy down to the ground. That's the series for these 2 months. And in December, we're going to have a Kwanzaa Umoja throwdown because I believe, maybe not. So we'll talk about that next week, what we're going to do with the last session. It may not actually be on Saturday because I think Umoja is actually on Sunday. So we may do a Kwanzaa celebration so you can see how we celebrate unity, and it'll be really bad. So hopefully we'll get 100 people in it. So George, you want to roll the sound so we can all save the chat? Fannie Lou Hamer.
Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. On this little light of mine, her song with you, yeah. She rocked the state of Mississippi. Now a few more black people stand there. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer. the cotton down a white man's farm. She received threats on her life, was fired from a job, scorned and kicked off the farm. Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's what the lady would yell. Her body was beaten and she walked crippled, trying to vote. She was thrown in jail. Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer. Land of the free and home of the slave, criticize the law of the land. For 100 years, blacks had lived in fear. Now they march, took their lives in their hands. Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer. She came by here and she didn't stay long. Helped to turn a few things around. Cancer took her body, but the struggle got her soul. Now we laid her body in the ground. Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer.
Thank you. Good evening.
Recording stopped.
Okay, thank you for joining us.